last piece on tonight's program will be familiar and comes from an entirely different period. So in this last piece, you'll have heard a lot of modern instruments, relatively modern, thanks to say a synthesizer, a electronic instrument, and then a bass clarinet and an alto flute, a bigger flute than a normal flute, things that came into orchestral music in the 19th century and the 20th century. But we're moving back to a time before modern instruments, to the 17th century, and to the music of, and early 18th century, of music of Johann Sebastian Bach. And what we're going to play for you is a real rarity. In 1907, one of the most famous conductors and composers in Europe was lured by a big salary to come to America to become the essentially new director of the Metropolitan Opera House. However, when he arrived, the management changed, and no sooner had he gotten here than the new management hired somebody else to be the director, a man by the name of Arturo Toscanini. The person who was originally hired, Gustav Mahler, got stuck without a job, and he was convinced to stay in New York and to develop a great orchestra. And he did develop that great orchestra, it's called the New York Philharmonic, and he became its music director for 2.5 seasons. He died in 1911. And he lived in New York, a strange New York. He didn't learn any English because he didn't have to speak English. There are about 100 German daily publications, and you could speak German on the street, and German to the musicians of the orchestra. In any event, he found America to be a sort of strange place, and he decided that America needed an education, like many snobby Europeans. So he decided to arrange 2 orchestral suites by Johann Sebastian Bach in a new style and perform it. And he put these movements together in his own way, in his own fashion, and wrote a continuo part, a piano accompaniment part for it, made some changes, left most of the music as is, but we're going to play it in the way that he wanted it to play. So if there's anybody in this park who is a real aficionado of period instruments and Baroque performance style, the time to leave is now. Because we're not going to do anything remotely like that. So we want to apologize to you ahead of time if you're offended, because it doesn't sound like what we've all become used to in the 21st and late 20th century, this very antiseptic, very mechanical, very fast, and to some inexpressive performance of Baroque music. This is Gustav Mahler's take on Bach.